Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Happy to be here as usual with the usual cronies, and which I'll introduce in just a moment. And tonight's topic is karma a chameleon? Destiny falls. Little play on words there from the song, if everybody remembers from back in the day, the 80s. I'm sure everyone's not as old as I am to remember the group that came out with that Karma Chameleon song. Jen and I were talking when Glenn was told us what the title would be, and I never even really noticed that that was the actual name of the song. I knew it was part of the lyrics, but um, I thought it was "Come a Chameleon," but it wasn't. It sounds in the song, in the lyrics, it sounds like he's saying it so fast, it doesn't really register. But yeah, that's the name of the song, "Karma Chameleon." Culture Club. Now, tonight's broadcast doesn't really have anything to do with the Culture Club, but you'll see very quickly what the topic is about when we get into it. But first, we will say hello to the rest of the panel, and I'll start with our friend Glenn from Australia. Glenn, if you would say hello to the people.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to be here again, and be an interesting show. I think get some alternating views, perhaps.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I wanted to say something about that because our friend Believe had made a comment, and um, Glenn responded to the comment with a scripture verse, which I always think is interesting, and also apt. So the comment, can you read the comment, Glenn? Because I don't have it in front of me. The comment that Believe made, is that appropriate? Hello.
Sorry, that was me. I muted my mic. Okay. Believe said, "Karma is a falsity where mercy dwells."
Okay. So I don't know if Believe is going to be here tonight or not. He usually does show up. So when he gets here, I guess we can talk more about what he means by that. The comment to me means that, at least from his perspective, um, where mercy exists, karma doesn't, and that would just be the way I would take it. And so Glenn responded. It was the first comment in tonight's chat. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of flesh reap corruption. Galatians 6:8. Now, as far as believers that know Scripture, we've heard this verse many times. God is saying in this verse, God's not to be mocked. That whatever you do in life, whatever you sow, whatever choices you make, there will be a reaping, which is similar to the concept of karma, which we'll describe within the write-up itself. And this is something that I believe very strongly in. And obviously, from a non-believing perspective, karma would make sense. I mean, you hear, whether you believe in karma or not, it's a common expression. Oh, karma. And I'm sure if you look at YouTube at all, there's plenty. The term instant karma. Those are some very entertaining videos. They usually pertain to people that are being jerks in traffic, and then something happens, like a cop pulls them over when they're dangerously passing people, and a lot of people have cameras in their vehicles, which I think is a good idea. And they'll laugh when someone, like almost runs them off the road, and then or makes an illegal U-turn, and then they see blue lights and they get pulled over right away, and that's an example of instant karma. So the guy reaped poor reckless driving, and he sowed reckless driving and reaped a ticket, probably, in that situation. But yeah, so It's a quick example of that. All right. So we'll also hear from my lovely wife, Jen. Jen, say hello to the people.
I can't see her.
Oh, you know what? Oh, there we go.
There she is.
I'm saying say hello to the people, and she told me before that she'd probably get kicked out, and there she was sitting there waiting for me to let her in. So my apologies, babe.
Oh, okay. I just was going to say your voice was going in and out, and I wasn't sure if it was just me and my phone or if it was on everybody else's end as well.
Oh, I don't know. We have a couple people in the chat. So, guys, could you let me know if my voice is going in and out, or is it Jen's phone that maybe it was going in and out?
It's like the volume sounds like it's going down and then up randomly and then down and then up randomly. It's very weird.
Okay. Can you guys hear that? Does it sound like my volume is going up and down? Okay, Nez says that it is going up and down. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is leave the studio and come back in. And so if someone else could just say a couple words while I jump out.
Sure. I'll
Okay,
just
I'll be
say
right
hey to everybody, and I'm doing well. I've had an interesting weekend. Just not feeling the best, so dealing with that. But feeling good tonight, which is great. I can still hear you, Jason.
I just came back in.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go back out again.
Okay, there it goes. Anyway, how is everybody? Nez Lover, hey. Joel, hello. I'm just going to say hi to people while Jason is stepping out and coming back in.
Great.
Oh, lovely. I think it's better.
Is it better?
Oh, no.
No?
It sounds like you're like pulling the mic away and then putting it forward and pulling it away and pulling it forward. It's very weird.
That is weird. It's still happening?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, let me go all the way out.
Is it going to kick us off?
No, you should. I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, Glenn, my volume was low. I took my microphone, my headset off because I thought it was the headset because it's kind of old. And so the speakerphone's not as good as that. So I'm going to plug it back in. It's just the in and out of Jason's voice was driving me bonkers. So can you hear me better, Glenn?
About the same.
About the same? Okay. I'll try putting the headset back on. Hold on one sec. I'll keep talking. Hey, everybody. Actually, I'll wait till Jason comes back in.
We'll try it again.
Okay.
Does it sound better?
I think it's still doing it, which is, it's not as bad though.
Well, I unplugged the microphone and plugged it back in and went out of the studio and came back in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that, but interesting.
Guys in the chat, is it still doing it? Going out and coming back in? I've never had this problem before.
Yeah.
I can hear you fine, Cripps.
Okay. All
Might
right.
just be me.
Well, Nez said in the chat that it was that she noticed something. I don't know if it's still doing it though. I can't hear it. If I turn the actual broadcast on, then it makes sounds.
Yeah, it sounds better now.
It sounds better. Okay, great. All right.
Yeah, good.
That's
Okay, perfect.
much better.
Much better.
Yeah,
okay.
much better.
Well, maybe it was when I plugged the microphone into the USB into the port. Maybe it wasn't in there all the way or something. I don't know. But
Maybe.
I don't know. That's troubleshooting stuff, guys. If you're listening to the playback, oh, Nez says I sound better. Great. Thank you, Nez. Appreciate that. Sorry about the weird beginning to the broadcast. You sound better too, Jen?
Yeah. Do I?
Yeah. Well, I didn't notice that you didn't sound.
Oh.
But that's okay.
Yeah, the headset's a lot better than the speakerphone on the phone.
It matters how the audience hears us for sure. So
Yeah.
that's why that would be a concern.
Well, I'm glad yours got fixed because I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do 2 hours of this. It was like making my brain go haywire, like your voice going in and out, like back and forth. I was like, oh my gosh, you'll have to do this show by yourselves.
No, I wouldn't do that. If that were the case, we'd figure something out to make it right. Yeah, because part of doing the broadcast is definitely to be heard, and if there's some kind of problem, I mean, I have quit broadcasts when it's for lighter problems than that,
Yeah.
like repeating. We used to have that problem when we
Oh, the
had
echoing.
the echoing is
Oh,
very annoying. I can't do it. I've actually when that happens with other people's broadcasts that I really want to hear, it's a good topic and everything like that, but there's the echoing thing going on. I just can't do it.
yeah.
No.
It like hurts your brain.
Yeah, it does. All right, so we're going to get started, guys. Thank you for being here. And as we go on, if anyone pops in when we have a moment, we'll definitely try to say hello to everybody. But for everyone that's here, thank you so much for continuing to come to these broadcasts and be in the chat and listen to what we have to say. And I was just going to mention right before we get started, when the three of us, change the roles for who does the broadcast, that's part of what we like to do. And things are brought to the table so there can be discussion. And when Glenn does his write-ups, obviously it's, and from the perspective of a non-believer, but he always leaves room so that Jen and I, knowing that we are believers, can make comments. And I love that he does that. So if people react to the title, if the title in this case is karma, and certainly understand if anyone has an issue with that particular word or don't believe that it exists or whatever, completely understand that. But that's part of why we discuss things. And from Glenn's perspective, I think a lot of times he likes to see what similarities there are between Christianity and other beliefs. And I, for one, enjoy that he does that and takes the time to take a look at the similarities between things, between what we believe as Christians and what other people of other religions also believe, and where there's a joining, or where people can come to the table with a similar belief, even though the religions might be different. I think where there's disagreement, this is a common thing in disagreement. If you disagree on things, the best way to mitigate that is to find where you can agree and talk about those things. It can bridge the gap for people that disagree about a lot. And as I'm sure a lot of you have heard me say many times, it's just fascinating to me how people can't have conversations anymore. It seems like if there's disagreement, they just can't talk about it. So it's interesting. All right. So I don't know if Celine and Annette were in here before. I haven't really looked.
No, they weren't. I said hi to everybody else, though.
Okay, yeah. Hello to Celine, welcome, and hello to Annette. Annette and Celine, we're glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping by. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started. Again, the topic is karma, a chameleon, destiny falls, and it starts with a quote. The universal law of karma is that of action and reaction, cause and effect, sowing and reaping. In the course of natural righteousness, man, by his thoughts and actions, becomes the arbiter of his destiny. That's by Paramahansa Yogananda. I know Cripps enjoys testing his pronunciation skills. LOL.
That was great.
Tonight's broadcast examines the concept of karma, or more simply put, what goes around comes around. Do you believe in karma? Do you believe in destiny? If you do believe in such things, do our actions determine our destiny, or is it preordained? Great questions. I'm sure Cripps and Jenn will add a biblical dimension to the broadcast. It will be interesting to see if overlap exists. If you don't believe in any of this, no problem. There are still many human attitudes to ponder. We shall look at the concepts of instant karma and deferred karma to see if such ideas make any sense at all. Tonight's music is Destiny Falls by Mark Petrie, Epic Mondays Music Extensions, and the link is in the description. Not for a moment do I advocate for being passive when it comes to protection of oneself, family, or country. It is a case of when it is appropriate to take a stand and when is it relevant to do nothing. Perhaps it is a simple case of discerning whether the enemy is external or internal. Our road is devoted to the internal enemies and to add balance later to internal friends. Let's begin with some of our less desirable human traits and reactions. Revenge, resentment, antagonism, acrimony, hatred, etc., are but a few that are prevalent in many of us. My thinking is that carrying such thoughts within sets us up for instant karma, which I see as self-inflicted when we focus on payback for something done to us that we don't like. From personal observation, I see such people living with stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma. Why would anyone do that to themselves? What's in it for them? I wonder, does stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma ease up when thoughts translate to actions, or does it all become exacerbated? There we go. In case you have not noticed, it's not that difficult to take someone down, to cause hurt and pain via retribution, or just for the sake of it, etc. I understand that it can momentarily make one feel better to do so. I think most of us have been there. Perhaps good in the moment until you begin to consider what you just did. Add to that, there can be also deliberate dishonesty, deceit, treachery, etc., for one's personal advantage at the expense of another. In the big picture, I see deferred karma, that's the chameleon in plain sight. Metaphorically speaking, the karma chameleon sees you, but you cannot see it. Karma decides when and in what form it will reveal itself. If karma is real, is this a good enough reason not to behave badly? For fear of what is around the corner? I don't think so. I rather think behave better because it's the right thing to do. Does it feel better to do good than harm? I say very much so. I believe Melanie Chisholm is correct when she says everybody in life is a chameleon. I also like that Hugh Jackman says maturity is when you have the power to destroy someone who did you wrong, but you just breathe, walk away, and let life take care of them. I don't believe karma is about punishment or reward. I rather see it as a mechanism that confronts us with the consequences of our actions. That's my idea. I would like to hear your opinions. This brings us to the internal friends, and Cripps gets the chance to lead this part of the discussion. What are the attitudes and thoughts that enable us to live a life of contentment, rather than one of focus on righting perceived wrongs done to us? I'll start with, do unto others as you would have done to yourself. The energy you emit is the energy you attract. As you think, you shall, or so shall you be. What is my destiny? What is yours? How can I know? Can I change it? Maybe. And ending with a quote, to journey without being changed is to be a nomad. To change without journeying is to be a chameleon. To journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim. Mark Nepo or Nepo, not sure which, but there you go. All right, lovely, wonderful, amazing. We have a lot to draw from here for tonight's broadcast. Well, look who just popped in. Torben Rasmussen, one of my favorite names to say on the broadcast. He is not new to the broadcast, but I haven't seen him in a while. Welcome, Torben. We're glad that you're here. And please, everyone, make Torben feel welcome. Like I said, he's not new, but hasn't been here in a while, which is not a derogatory thing. As we've said before, come when you like, leave when you like, but we're certainly happy when you stay. So welcome. All right. Great. I am well, Torben. Thank you. Gosh, I love that name, Torben Rasmussen. It's wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So we're going to get started. All right. So tonight's broadcast examines the concept of karma, or more simply put, what goes around comes around. And relating to that quote, do you believe in karma? Do you believe in destiny? If you do believe in such things, do our actions determine our destiny, or is it preordained? So we'll start with the first one. Do you believe in karma? What do you think, Jen? Do you believe in karma?
I don't think so in the sense of like the worldly sense. I think of it more in the biblical sense, in the, kind of scripturally, like the scripture from Galatians that Glenn posted. I mean, I guess the worldly concept of karma, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's always true. I think
Oh,
that there are people in the world that do bad, and they don't see it come back to them in this life.
oh, in this life, right?
Yeah.
So, are you saying that monumentally you would believe in karma, just maybe not in this life? Like, in other words, with a belief in God, you would. I'm assuming you would believe that if it doesn't come to them in this life, that eventually they would pay. Like
They would have to answer for what they've done,
right,
in
right,
this world, between them and God. Um, I don't think it always comes back around, while they're alive,
I would agree.
if that makes sense.
I
I
would,
think
I
there are
would
some people that get away with a lot of horrible things, and it seems like they die and they were never brought to justice here in this
right,
world. You know what I mean? But they do have to answer to God when
right,
they die. So it is that particular perspective is different than the world's, like the secular, I
right.
guess, idea of karma.
Hmm.
But I do think a lot of people do reap what they sow, in this earth.
Sure,
I think it does happen a lot,
sure.
but not all the time. And I feel like the worldly concept is that what goes around comes around. It comes around when you're still alive, and I've seen that not happen sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I would say I would agree with you first and foremost, but I would also say that even in ways where a person we don't see the ramifications of someone's actions, like a Hitler or a dictator that kills millions of people, like Mussolini
yeah,
and things like that. That yeah, maybe they don't we don't see them pay for their great crimes against humanity while they're alive. But I would say that in smaller ways, the way they treat people, there is a karma of sorts. For instance, a man that works and doesn't pay attention to his family, his wife leaves him, and he ends up alone. Um, that is, by the concept that's being presented as far as what karma is, from that perspective. I mean, it could be argued that that's an example of karma. The
yeah,
divorce is a ramification of his non-communication or not paying attention to his family.
yeah.
But
But I would say, because I was thinking about this a second ago, if you're dealing with someone who is psychopathic or a sociopath, someone that has no empathy, I think people from the outside could look at them and be like, oh, poor guy, he lost his wife and his, relationship with his kids isn't good. But what happens if the person just doesn't care? Now, that could be considered karma, somebody that lives a life where they don't care. I think that's very sad. They might not think
yeah,
it's sad because they don't have empathy or feelings or something,
yeah,
but I still think that's a sad state to be in.
I would agree.
So would that be considered karma? I don't know.
Yeah. So if the person doesn't care, is it karma? Like
Hmm.
the scenario that I presented? Well, maybe not to them. I would say that in that scenario, the same guy had a wife and kids. Do their choices affect the kids? And I would say absolutely. So is there karma in that? Um,
Wouldn't that be the kids' karma, not the father's?
it would. I'm making the point that everything we do affects someone else,
Yes.
whether
Yeah.
we see the effect or whether we care about the effect. Everything
Yeah.
we do does have a butterfly effect,
A
so to
reaction.
speak, or a ripple.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll answer next. As far as the term karma, yeah, it exists. It's a real thing. That people talk about. It's a widely used expression, as I described before we started the instant karma thing. So I do believe in it as a concept, a concept that exists. As Glenn said, from a biblical perspective, yeah, I see it more as reaping what you sow. But when people say karma, I don't react like, oh, don't say karma. Oh, you need to say reaping and sowing. It doesn't bother me that people put the word karma on there. Oh, instant karma. I don't go, oh no, reaping and sowing. It's not an argument I need to have with people. It's just the way that it's being said. I don't feel the need to correct someone and say or change the way that they're looking at it. So in that sense, I do believe in karma. I just call it something else. It's still reaping and sowing that I very much believe in, like the scripture that Glenn posted. And before we get to Glenn has made a comment, I'm going to move my thing over here real quick. Okay. Nez says, I disagree. We do not have to see someone paying for their negative behaviors for it to be so. Glenn reminded us God is not mocked. So we see, I don't think Jen was saying that they don't pay for any negative behaviors. I think she was thinking of there are some evil people that we never see taken down. Like they get away with bilking people out of money. Now, there are other people that we see that do get taken down, but I understand what you're saying, Naz, and I don't disagree with either point. I just think it's a matter of perspective. I do see people, biblically speaking, even David made the comment observing the leaders, the evil leaders that were around him at the time, and he's crying out to God saying, why do the evil flourish? Why does it seem like they never get justice?
Yeah.
And I think he's saying that at a moment where he's kind of perplexed by this. So certainly if it was happening during David's time, it's something that has happened throughout history where it may seem like people aren't receiving the karma that they deserve, or they're not reaping what they sow, at least from the perspective of others. But I would say we don't always know the inner workings of everyone's life. They may be reaping and sowing left and right and not know it. Or
that's true.
Karma might be
seen.
Yeah, we just might not see it. Just because we don't see it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist. I think that's true.
Isn't it interesting that some people weaponize the karma aspect?
Ooh,
like somebody does wrong to them and they're talking to their friends about what was done to them by some guy or girl, and they're like, karma's a bitch.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like this weapon, which I don't think is a very good place to be either, in that perspective of it's almost like wishing harm on somebody that's done something wrong to you.
See, to me, that's karma too, or reaping and sowing. If you're wishing ill will to someone, that can come back to you as well. Biblically speaking, we're not supposed to wish evil on people. We're supposed to love them, and that heaps hot coals on them when we pray for them. And we don't. I don't believe, biblically speaking, that we're supposed to wish evil on others. We leave that in the hands of God. In fact, God says, vengeance is mine to repay. And so the implication is certainly there that he will repay it. And throughout scripture, we see many times, it's almost like God saying, hey, don't worry about these evil people. They're going to have their day. And I trust that.
Yeah. Ooh. Could I read Nez's comment? It goes into what you just said.
Sure.
She said, from a Christian perspective, I think if we learn to trust God, then we don't worry about who's getting paid back for what we just know that God will bring justice in his own way, in his own time. I completely agree.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Okay. So let's hear from Glenn. Glenn, do you believe in karma?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I also think Nez keeps stealing my answers. Is she a clone or something? I haven't paid her to come on the show,
That's great.
But I see it like she does. I think, all I need to do as a human is to say what goes around comes around and believe that. It's not for me to then sit and watch that person in case, you know, they get struck by lightning. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've moved on. I'm, as Ned said exactly, that they're going to get paid out. I don't wish bad on them.
Right.
I just don't. Look, it will come as it comes. So very much as she sees it, it's as I said, it's not for me to celebrate if someone has misfortune. That's not what I think is fair and reasonable. If it happens, it happens.
Wow, I love it.
Go Nez. I'll send you the $20.
There you go.
Coco wants to weigh in.
Yeah, Coco's here.
Thank you,
says
Glenn.
He's messaging. He's giving me the. Oh, what does he say? He believes in the karma of tuna.
Of course.
I better go fulfill that for him. Okay. Perfect.
Sure. Torben says, ancient Greek said, your personality will be your destiny. Your personality will be your destiny. That says a lot. So I posted that in there. Also, we'll say hello to Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. He's in the chat. And I'm glad you're here. Thank you for stopping by.
Hey, Believe.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. All three of us answer that one. The next one is, do you believe in destiny? This is a big question. We could spend a lot of time on this one. Destiny is a big thing. You know, is there destiny? Are we meant to do certain things in life? Is it just understood that we have a certain pattern that we follow and we end up doing it no matter what? There seems to be quite a division on this topic of destiny. What do you think, Jen?
I believe in the will of God. Okay. So destiny is a little different, I think. Makes me want to look up, keep talking, and I'm going to look up the definition of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, people have this conversation about destiny, you know, like when you meet someone new and you fall in love and stuff, you say, oh, we were destined to meet. Or a really good friendship that you have with someone, and you think back in your mind about how you met this wonderful person, and you think, oh, well, if this didn't happen and that didn't happen, we wouldn't even be together. I mean, I say this to Jen all the time. When I look back at how she and I met, I think of what things took place in order to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily use the word destiny, but I certainly have an understanding of, you know, certain things having taken place. But the thing is, we'll never know, because the things did happen a certain way. So we'll never know what would have happened had these events not taken place.
Yeah.
So on my end, I'm really not sure. I think for God, because he has a full understanding, he sees the end from the beginning. To him, I'm sure it seems like destiny is a real thing, but to us, we're finite minds. We can't see the end from the beginning. We don't know what's going to happen. So how do we know what destiny is? We could call something destiny. Did you find the definition?
I did. It's interesting. It says the events that will necessarily happen to a particular person or thing in the future. Now, the quote they gave as an example, which opens up another can of worms, is she was unable to control her own destiny. So that makes me think that some people may have different definitions of what destiny is.
Yeah,
I think there are some people that feel like they don't have control over their destiny, and others that recognize that the choices that they make with their free will determines their path. But then for believers, you're also factoring in the will of God and his plan, which I believe is bigger than ours.
I would agree.
So
I would agree. It's thrown around a lot, the idea of destiny. You know, this person was destined, like if you're born on the wrong side of the track, you know, people would say, oh, he's destined for bad things, you know, or he's destined for this or for that. Just meaning like because of where you're born, from an outside perspective, it just seems like life's going to go a certain way. I would make the argument that we have more to do with where we end up, by our choices. That's what
I
I
agree.
believe. But I've gone back and forth about this. When things are not going well for me, I says, why is God allowing this to happen? If you believe in God, then you can kind of blame him for the way things turn out. We can kind of, I'm not saying it's right to do so. I'm just being transparent about in the past, different thoughts that I've had, and say, like, why do other people have all these, like a really, really great job, and they're able to make all this money, and I'm not? I mean, it's certainly not for want of trying. So what do they have that I don't? I've asked that question many times. You see someone that's a complete and total jerk, and you look at yourself and say, well, I'm a really nice guy. Why does he have all these good things and I don't? Now, having said that, I'm fully aware that we shouldn't think like that. I mean, the Bible's very clear on envy. If you want to term it envy, I'm not sure it's exactly the same thing, but it could be. Okay, so believe Glenn, I posted that quote thinking of you. Wanted to hear your response. Just wanted to add that most of not all people disagreeing with the faith usually come to your perspective. Yeah, well, you're very astute to notice that, I believe. But yeah, Glenn is a unique thinker, and some of the perspectives that he comes to don't seem to fit the general idea, at least for me, of a non-believer. And if you've listened to the broadcast, you've heard me say a lot of times that because Glenn has seemed willing over the past almost 3 years to look into Christianity and do the write-ups and understand it, he seems to have a better understanding than some so-called Christians, and that's just a fact. I mean, I present it as my opinion, but that perspective, my perspective, is from empirical evidence and observation, and having had these many conversations all these years that I've been alive and hearing so-called Christians explain their concept of God, and hearing Glenn's concept of at least his understanding of if he believed in God in the first place, the perspective from Christianity, what he thinks of it. So anyway, Glenn, are you done with the feeding of the cat?
Yeah, no, that only takes about 15 seconds.
Oh, 15 seconds. Okay. Well, I was just going on and on, waiting for you to get back. I don't know how quick it is to feed the cat. I don't know if there's a ritual involved, or I just
no. He doesn't have to jump through any hoops or
chanting and candlelighting.
Well,
no, he doesn't have to beg or any of that.
I just had this mental picture of you having a set of pillow out on the counter, and you get situated, and then you.
No, he just says tune it, and I say yes, master.
Okay.
Coco has a lovely destiny.
There you go. Yeah. So on this idea of destiny, what do you think? Do you believe in destiny, Glenn? What do you have to say?
I'm a bit of a fence sitter. I'm taking an each way bet on this one. A bit like what Nez said. I think that there's certain things that we can do that can influence our so-called destiny, but on the other hand, I think that there's something very unknown. I'll give you an example. Very shortly after I met Sandra, I went and had a chat to my mum, who was probably the one I was at. Well, she was the one I was always closest to. And I said to my mum, look, you're going to notice very shortly I'm going to change my whole life, and I'm going to do things that I've never, ever even considered doing. And I'm going to tell you why now, because Sandra is going to get really sick. I don't know when, but I know it's coming. So I said, I'm going to cram all this stuff into my life with her now before it happens.
Okay, yeah.
And sure enough, it did happen. Now, was that her destiny? I don't know. Was it intuition? I don't know. These things are such nebulous sort of constructs that it's very hard to sort of pin them down. So
yeah.
So I think there's an element of yes and an element of no, and it's all sort of intertwined. But Yeah, on the whole, I'd say yes.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. It was a really good example. Um, it's an interesting question, like when you have a feeling like something is going to happen and you react to that, whether it's true or not, you're reacting to your intuition. And in your case, it ended up being true. So think about if you hadn't reacted uh, to those thoughts and feelings that were coming up for you. Maybe I'm using the wrong word for that. Intuition is a good word. Then the way that you did handle it. Now you don't have to feel bad. You don't have to look back and say, "Well, I wish I had done this or wish I had done that." You squeezed it all in.
Absolutely.
I think
I
that's
would feel if I didn't respect what I felt, I would have forever been recriminating against myself for not doing something.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's never good. I mean, we should always do what we feel we need to do while we have the chance to do it, for sure. Okay, we've all answered that question. So the last one in this grouping is: if you do believe in such things, do our actions determine our destiny, or is it preordained? And as usual, I'll start with Jen on that one.
Oof.
Actions determine our destiny, or is it preordained? Is it preordained what we do? What do you think?
No, I think our actions do determine what happens in our life.
Hmm.
I don't know. The preordained thing always throws me. Things are because I do think about this a lot, and like, okay, for an example, with you and me, I do think we were meant to meet.
Hmm.
I think the timing, even though you and I've talked many times that we wish we would have met earlier, when we were
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
I still think there is purpose and reason beyond what we can know as to the timing of you and I meeting.
Yeah.
And we've talked many times about God and Him being omniscient, knowing everything, and how people think there's preordainedness. That's not a word. But at the same time, we have free will. So it's like, how does that work? That's a tricky question.
It is. It
That's
is.
really tricky. I didn't really answer it. I just shared my thoughts around the question.
Oh, that's okay. Some things there may not be an answer for. We can ask
That's
the
true.
question, but there may not be an answer. But I would say, based on what you said, uh, with a belief in God, we believe that God does know everything. So what He might do, and this is just a theory on my part, so no one get all up in arms like I'm saying definitively this is who God is. But what I think is, like you were saying, from your perspective, we were supposed to meet. Well, we have free will. So I think what God does is He might present an opportunity for us, and it's up to us whether we take it or not.
Great
I,
point.
I think that's true about salvation. For everyone, they have the opportunity to accept the free gift, but God knows that there are many that won't. So He presents the opportunity to everyone. Everyone has the opportunity while they live and breathe. They have that opportunity. And as Believe says, God is merciful, and I agree with that. He is merciful, and that is mercy to allow people uh, a period of time. I hear the TV again going off in the room.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it. Be right
Okay,
back.
thank you. Yeah, so Jen and I were watching. Usually before the broadcast, we eat dinner together and watch a show, and we had one on, and we were kind of in the middle of it, so we had agreed to come back and watch it after the broadcast. And sometimes what it does is that Netflix in particular, it will play ads. Even if you've got a show paused, apparently it'll just start playing ads. I don't know why it does
Yep. I thought there was people in our apartment. I was like, what's going on? Or was
that.
our neighbors being crazily loud?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think God presents what I was saying was I think God presents the opportunity for us, and He knows He's given us free will, and He does know which person will choose to believe and which ones won't, but He has to present the opportunity to everyone equally. That's just my belief. And people argue that. There's there's many scriptures that say that a man won't come to him unless he's called. Well, I agree with that, but I feel like he's called everyone, because if he doesn't call everyone, it would be like the Calvinists think that God picks and chooses who's going to believe and who doesn't out of his foreknowledge. And what kind of God would that make him? I don't necessarily like the God the Calvinists believe he is. They seem to be fine with the kind of God that they've made him out to be, that it's okay that he chooses one person to believe and another person not to. I'm going to pick you, you, and you. It's like picking a team for softball or kickball or whatever. I don't think it works like that. I think everyone has the same opportunity. He presents the opportunity, and it's up to us with the free will that we've been given to make a decision what we want to do. Now, if Matthias were listening, he would say, you said it, making a decision. He believes that we don't decide, that it's by the preponderance of evidence that we're led into believing. But that's a topic for another night. Okay. So what about you, Glenn? Destiny or preordination?
I'll just comment on Belief's remark. Thinking that the universe / God is angry would have to be about one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You'd be amazed how many people believe that, though.
So he says, law-based, all religions, ideologies, philosophies, and some within Christendom usually believe the higher power, the universe, God, is angry, and puts the expectation on humans to live up to a standard. So just to give context to what Glenn's saying. Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
No, it just feels like that has got to be incredibly dumb.
Why can you explain why it's dumb to you?
What value is it? What value would God be to a person if God is angry? I just can't see it. It has no. If you've got free will to live up to a standard, well, surely the concept of some entity that's angry is just going to put a huge frame of weight upon your shoulders. How do you actually become the person that you want to be if you have to be accountable for every single thing in fear? I think you get where I'm going. This has got to be one of the stupidest things I've heard on TSL in all this time we've been doing the show.
Yeah.
So,
I have a theory about that. I think a lot of people, me included, because I've dealt with this in my walk as a Christian just a little bit. I know some people struggle with it more, but growing up with an angry dad, it was almost like I projected that onto my Heavenly Father. And so when you read the Old Testament and you hear about God being angry, I kind of shaped that into what he's talking about in that comment. And I wasn't there for too long, but some people get stuck there. They get stuck in thinking that God is this angry God, and like Believe said, have to live up to this standard, and it's this expectation put on us that's impossible.
Yeah.
And I believe anything that's motivated out of fear from someone being angry is just not a good motivator. It doesn't last.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jen. Just to be clear, Believe is not saying he believes that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I knew that.
I know you knew that. I just wanted to make sure that was made clear. He's saying, he's saying that that there are people, certainly in other religions. I mean, obviously, Islam believes that he's an angry God, and I mean, what Believe is saying is true, that there are other religions out there that paint him as an angry God, a God of vengeance. Biblically speaking, if you're looking at the Old Testament, there are some areas in Scripture where he is angry for one reason or another. But the thing that I agree with, not that it's up to me, God's not going to consult with me and say, "Oh, good, Cripps, you agree with my anger towards this certain thing." What makes him the most angry is the taking advantage of the poor, the widowed, the homeless, things like that. The blood of the innocents, things like that, which I would understand that he would be angry at that, because that's not what he intends. I don't believe he's pleased and happy with, giving food to the hungry, clothing the unclothed, giving a homeless person a place to live, things like that. So it makes sense to me that he would be angry at the opposite of that. But I would agree with Glenn. I would agree with what Jen was saying. The idea of painting him as just angry is ridiculous. I don't agree with that at all either.
Yeah.
So Nez says, our actions determine some things, but not all. Bad things can happen to good people, not as a punishment, but simply an obstacle to overcome with God's help. It's true. I'll agree with that.
Okay. Can I answer the question now, please? I know I diverted.
Oh, no, of course. Answer the question, yeah.
Okay. No, this is another nebulous sort of. I do think our actions have an effect on our destiny. I mean, because it's something, it's steps that you've taken. Is it preordained? Now, I'll give you an example of why I think it's conceivably possible, but I see it in a different way, and I use this all the time, as you know. The universe provides, and this is what I think happens. And although I can speak for myself that it does happen, it's amazing to me how when something is meant to happen, it's like the Red Sea parts, and everything falls into place. You don't have to do anything. It's just like it's just like a series of things happen, and it's all sequential until you get to where you look back and you say, if only one of those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't have got to that end point.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite a marvelous thing. It just it feels as though it's preordained.
Right.
I don't know whether it is, but it feels like it.
Okay.
No, that's a good answer.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. All right. And Glenn
We've
says,
experienced that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We talk about that a lot, actually.
Yeah, we do. So I would agree with Glenn. There's some truth to that for sure. I've always struggled a little bit with the idea that we do nothing. I mean, for instance, in talking about having met Jen and my theory that God provides the opportunity, and with free will, I could have decided not to pursue that relationship at all. I could have said, when I first met Jen, she was in the abusive relationship, and I could have said, well, she's married, so I could have decided not to entertain even a friendship with someone that's married, as many would have told me not to do, not to have a friendship with a married person. I mean, there's many that have that perspective. I'm glad I ignored that. Didn't really pay much attention to that. And for me, having a friendship with someone, and there are dangers to that. So you have to be careful. But my point is, I could have shied away from it, so that opportunity would have been missed.
Mm-hmm.
So we all have that opportunity. So something is required. A reaction is required to the opportunity. God/universe can lay all these things out for us and want a certain outcome, but if we don't respond to those opportunities, then nothing happens. So I diverge a little bit on that point. There are some responsibility that for us in order for things to happen. Yeah, I would agree though that some things just happen regardless. Of it's not about us making a decision. Bad things, good things, some things just happen. It's not reaping and sowing. It's just, circumstances, things happen. I would use the recent virus situation. That's nothing we did to bring that upon ourselves. It was a outside circumstance that was created by other people and other situations, but we had to respond to it. And people responded in different ways. You had people that lined up to I'm getting myself in trouble here. We get the whole
What are you doing?
broadcast thrown out by saying certain words. So I'll back away from comment. I'll just say overall that there were many different reactions to the same stimulus. We all had the opportunity to react in certain ways, and that's my point. Woo! Dodged a bullet there. What's the point of getting your broadcast scrubbed by YouTube for saying words that they don't want you to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not into that. Okay. All right. We all answered that one. Glenn says, I'm sure Cripps and Jenn will add some biblical dimension. Of course, we're doing that as we go. Scrolling down. Okay. Not for a moment do I advocate for being passive when it comes to the protection of oneself, family, or country. It is a case of when it is appropriate to take a stand and when it is relevant to do nothing. So the question related to that, perhaps it is a simple case of discerning whether the enemy is external or internal. Perhaps it is the simple case of discerning whether the enemy is external or internal. Now, you have that highlighted as a question, but it's also a statement. So I might be a little confused. Maybe I should have asked this before the broadcast.
You can answer it if you want. Or do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So is it an internal enemy or an external enemy? And I would say it depends on what it is that's being referred to. But I think we do have external enemies and we have internal enemies. You know, people say, that person's struggling with their inner demons. And that can be literal or figurative, depending on the situation, of course. And then there are external things that come at us from the outside, external enemies. So it really depends. Continuing, our road is devoted to the internal enemies and to add balance later to internal friends. Let's begin with some of our less desirable human traits and reactions. Revenge, resentment, antagonism, acrimony, hatred, etc. are but a few that are prevalent in many of us. My thinking is that carrying such thoughts within sets us up for instant karma, which I see as the self-inflicted when we focus on payback for something done to us that we don't like. So from personal observation, I see such people living with stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma. Why would anyone do that to themselves? What's in it for them? So living with all these things that Glenn mentions: revenge, resentment, and antagonism, acrimony, hatred. Jen, why would people do that to themselves? Living with stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma. Why would anyone do that to themselves?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's a great question. You know, like backing up to revenge, that one part of the first paragraph. I think our flesh wants revenge. Some people more than others.
Right.
I think it's hard to walk away from situations or people that have done us harm. I think it's a normal human reaction to be angry about it and feel affronted, and especially when people do it with just carelessness. And I think even if people were to do something bad to you with calculative, like purpose, that's still angering. I've had fleeting moments where I've walked down dark paths in my mind of things I could have done to my ex. They're very, very fleeting. I don't give it time to to run its course in my thought. I cut it off. I'm like, but I have entertained it a little bit in the past, I'll be honest. But it's just not my place. Me being a believer, I know that God's got it. And as we've mentioned before on this show, we pray for my ex every once in a while. But I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this question, why people would do that. It makes me think of that quote about unforgiveness. And I'm not getting off topic. I'll swing back around. But how they say when you don't forgive someone, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. I think it's the same concept when you're focused on giving a negative to someone who's pushed a negative on you in some way, shape, or form, it's just not good for us.
Right.
It's not
Right.
good for our hearts, our soul. I don't think it's good for us spiritually, physically,
Right.
to be focused on that. I think it can be addictive. I think it can bring us into a very dark place. Um, so again, I don't know if I fully answered the question, but that would be my answer. I think it's tempting to go there in our minds and sometimes in action. Some people
Yeah.
do follow through with action, not just their thoughts and ideas, um and it's just not good for you. I mean, there's so many different instances we could walk out, somebody doing something illegal to someone that's done something really bad to them.
Oh, sure.
You could get caught, you could go to jail. Like, was all that worth it?
Yeah.
Glenn said something earlier in the show, like he doesn't pay any mind and he moves on.
Mhm.
I know that's easier said than done for some people. I get it. I get that sometimes people do things to you that are just so horrendous. And, in the moment, it's like, how do I move on from this? Like, how do I walk away? And they just get away with it.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really, really hard.
It is.
But I think it's the best thing for us. Now, obviously, if certain things happen, you should report it to the police, all that stuff. But when it comes to what is it, exacting revenge? Is
Yeah.
that the right phrase?
Uh-huh.
Yourself, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, I agree. Well, you did it. I believe you answered the question. So one of the things Glenn mentions above that is the first thing he mentions is revenge. So he says revenge, resentment, antagonism, acrimony, hatred, etc. Okay, so he's just mentioning a few of these negative, in my opinion, negative thoughts. So then the question is, from personal observation, I see people living with stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma. Why would anyone do that to themselves? What's in it for them? So that's the question. So you used an analogy when you were speaking. Another analogy, well, not an analogy, but from Scripture, God says, don't pay evil for evil."
Yeah.
There's a proverb. I think it's a proverb. Maybe Glenn can fish that out for us. But it's if you're thinking about revenge, dig two graves. So the
Yeah.
idea is, if you go out on a road to revenge, then it could end up, you could kill the person and you'll end up dead yourself.
Yeah.
So not just in Christianity, but throughout, revenge is not a concept that is looked upon favorably. But in particular, why you said some good things about revenge, and I can tell you from personal experience. I had someone back in my early 20s that did something that I saw as being very bad. And I did not let God revenge on him. I did something in return to get back at him. And the decision that I made, nothing happened to him well, I guess what happened to him was what I did to him. And what happened to me was the threat of having police involvement and looking over my shoulder, waiting for reprisals from him in response to my reprisal.
Yeah.
And bad things happened over a period of months based on I paid pretty high consequences. Never got arrested or anything crazy like that, but I just lived in this anxiety that Glenn describes in the question: anxiety, pressure, trauma, stress. Why I did that to myself? Well, I did that because I felt wronged. So what he's describing here, I have personal experience with. Now, I learned from that experience and never did anything like that again. And have there been other bad things that people have done to me since? Yes.
Yeah.
But I leave it alone. And whether it's fear of me facing the consequences for getting revenge on someone or not, I mean, to me, that's beside the point. I learned from it either way. Whatever the reasons are, I learned from it. And obviously, I've matured. I'm no longer 20 years old. I'm 30 some odd years have gone by. And in that time, I've learned and have believed more that God will repay things that we don't. It's not our job to do that.
Yeah.
Whether it's karma or reaping and sowing, I believe in it. I believe that that when people choose an evil lifestyle, if not in this life, they will pay for it at some point unless they have forgiveness.
Yeah.
And some people would think that that's not fair. Really, really evil people that get forgiveness, other people think, well, that's not fair. But there's plenty of scriptures that point the way to, well, it doesn't really matter if you think it's fair.
Yeah.
God is a merciful God, just as Belief pointed out. He is merciful.
Yeah. And I've seen so many stories. This plays into it, the whole forgiveness factor. When somebody does something bad to someone and they know it was bad, when they get forgiveness, when they should be getting someone that's coming after them or revenge or jail time or all kinds of things, I've seen people just be changed by and incredibly touched, and that's what I mean by changed,
Uh-huh.
from doing something bad and having the person that could have, you know, done the revenge route. Instead of that, they've chosen to forgive when by all worldly means and purposes they shouldn't be extending forgiveness to that person. It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the flip side to revenge. You know, you could either just walk away or you could extend forgiveness. Like what did you say earlier about the scripture? Wait, what was it about the coals on the head?
Yeah.
Heaping.
Yeah.
That was the word
Heaping
I was looking
coals.
for. Heaping coals. And I mean, that necessarily shouldn't be your. I'm going to forgive them so they can have coals on their head. You know.
Well, some
I
people
should.
do that.
Oh, geez, the people
Some people
do
do
that.
that.
It's awful.
Yes.
I
Yeah. Well,
forgive
they're doing
you.
it from the wrong perspective. If
Yeah.
you think that if I'm going to pray for someone so God heaps hot coals on their head, then you're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
What I believe God's saying in that verse is, you don't worry about it. Let me take care of it. Just pray for them. That's what he's expecting us to do, not so that bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to go to Glenn here in just a second, but I just want to point out, Torben says, True Story Live, you had no choice. She had you at hello. That's in reference to my story about
Yeah.
my choices. I just had to share that. Before Glenn answers, I also want to say, in answer to this question, I think that some people do get something out of stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma.
What do you think they get out of it?
I don't know,
Oh.
but they don't seem to do anything to get out of it. And using my ex-wife, for example, she was given the choice to do something about her stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma. So she knew it was there. And when we met, she let me know that this is something that she suffers with. But I thought, well, if she's aware of it, then she's going to do something to change it. She's not just going to lay in it.
Yeah.
But she did. For the 3 years that I was with her, almost 3 years, she didn't. She occasionally would go to counseling, but she wouldn't act upon it. Wouldn't do anything about it. So it was difficult for me to see someone react like that, because I'm not in any way a perfect person. But when I realized, like even this situation that I shared, I learned from it. I didn't want to continue paying the consequences of seeking revenge on someone, which was the example that I used. So I was watching someone that didn't seem to learn from this anxiety, pressure, trauma, stress, and it was very stressful. She would have anxiety attacks and panic attacks and things like that. Directly, a direct result of the things not being dealt with. Now I have a better understanding of that now than I did even back then. But even back then, I was like, why are you choosing to allow this stuff to happen to you and not doing anything about it? It
Yeah.
made no sense to me.
I was kind of in the same place too with my past marriage. Not the anxiety, but rage and just misery.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why. Because in my mind, I was like, there's a choice.
Right.
You can choose different things to get out of that place. Do you think it's a victim mentality type of thing?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think it can be. I mean, I can't say it's like
Maybe
that
not
for
always.
everyone,
Yeah.
but yeah, a victim mentality. Someone likes the attention, because I did give her attention. Speaking of my ex, I did give her attention when she would go lock herself in the room and lay in bed all day. You know, I would go and check on her and stuff, and maybe she got something out of that. I don't know. You know, I don't know, but I just know that I have seen that happen, not just with her, but with other people, that when they complain about the way their life is, but they don't do anything to change it. And this is continuous. It's not they complain once. You see the same people saying, "Oh, this is my life, and this is how horrible it is," and all that. But as you watch, you might even make suggestions. Well, you can do this, this, and this. Oh, I can't do that. I'm just stuck. Well, there's always a choice. Is my
Yeah.
point. And they just want to complain about it and not do anything to change it. And I don't know their story. I don't know what they've been through in their life. I just know that for me, I have always had a choice of rather than just saying, "Oh, I don't like this thing about myself," or "I don't like the situation." I know that I have a choice. If I don't like it, then I have an opportunity to do something while I still breathe. I have an opportunity to do something to change it. And I think we all have that same opportunity.
Yeah. Some people don't see it though.
Some people don't see it.
Well, and I'm going to say for me, the 14 years, I didn't see it.
Right.
I didn't think divorce was an option. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that I had a choice. And I think that some people don't realize that they have a choice. It seems like there are no choices on the table. And it took
Right.
two people coming into my life to show me that there were choices on the table. And I truly did not see it, which is unfortunate. But I know that some people get in that place, where they
Right.
it just looks hopeless.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so maybe I came across as being insensitive the way I phrased it. So let me
Just wanted to add that.
let me add a caveat to that. So the situation I'm talking about with my ex, we discussed it. I mean, it wasn't like she didn't know.
Yeah.
There were choices available, like getting counseling, getting help, reading books. There were plenty of choices made available to her, and she was aware of the choices. But she, at some point, decided not to do that. Now,
Yeah.
your situation, I very well know that you didn't see the choice until you did. But here's my point. When you saw that there was a choice, you acted on it very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the minute
Yeah.
you saw there was a choice, you acted on it. You didn't just stay in and go, "Well, that's my lot in life." So yeah, not seeing it is a valid excuse. If you don't see it, you don't see it. You can't make someone see something they don't see.
Yeah.
But you're an example, in my opinion, of a person that is looking for ways out of a situation. You don't want to be in a constant place of stress, anxiety. You do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's not the case for everyone, is all I'm saying. Okay, I've gone on enough here. Glenn, what about you? Why would anyone do that to themselves? What's in it for them? What do you think?
Yeah, this is a bit of a window into part of my autobiography, so it's something I can relate to.
Okay.
Why did I do it to myself? Because I didn't realize there was another option, like Jen said.
Okay.
I didn't have the skills nor the understanding that something else was possible.
Right.
What I did know, though, was that I was going down the hill. I knew that.
Yeah.
So the way back was only really to get help and for someone to tell me to get off my high horse and look and just see what I'm doing to myself, and then go and to try to rationalize that all of that stuff was a total waste of space. It just, hindsight's marvelous. You think, I've been such a fool. You just want to crawl under a rock. But then you realize that you had to do that to get where you are now.
Yeah.
So that's where we turn the negative to positive. But yeah. Why did I do it? I didn't know any different. That's my ignorance. So,
okay.
Hand up. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks for sharing, Glenn.
Can you just add, because part of your question is what's in it for them? Was there anything in it for you, or if you're looking at other people, what do you think's in it for them?
There was never anything in it for me.
Right.
I'm not naturally inclined to want to hurt anybody. But if there are situations that I've had in the past where I've just felt like, say, for example, my child was taken from me without any warning. I mean, that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all I could focus on, I'm going to hurt that person for doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas I needed some more insight to look at the big picture, not the small picture.
Yeah.
And the big picture was always going to be that children grow up, they'll find it, you do the right thing, and they will have a mind of their own. You've got to trust that they will see the truth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It needed
Yeah.
someone to tell me that, because I surely couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm thinking on the tail end of Glenn, I'm thinking about what did I get out of it by staying. I think for me, I was embarrassed to get divorced or even mention the word, because of being in church and being a Christian.
Sure.
It just was such a taboo thing. And
Still,
I think
still
that,
is.
yeah,
Sorry.
I think too, I truly felt like my suffering was doing some good.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because sorry to interrupt, babe.
That's okay.
You have talked about this, and it makes sense, and it might help someone.
You grow up hearing in church, carrying your cross,
Right.
suffering for Christ. I truly felt like I was suffering for Christ. And I felt like I was proving my love to this man I was married to by taking his abuse.
Right.
I thought surely at some point along the way, he has got to see that I am miserable and that I'm choosing to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm choosing to work alongside him with our business and choosing to love him. And I was praying for him all the time. He's got to see it, and he's got to see that I am suffering. But he didn't. Or he did, and he got some sick satisfaction out of it. But I don't think it was I think maybe God had me go through that for a season, and I learned, and I'm still learning so much from it. Not only that, but the marriage I have now and the relationship with God that I have now, it's so saturated and so joyful and peaceful and just wonderful. I don't know if I could have gotten to this place if I hadn't gone through that. And just being so grateful and just in awe of God every day. Like, I just never could have imagined you could live life like that. I just never would have imagined ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just for that time before I saw the choice on the table,
Yeah.
I really and truly felt like, and I felt like my husband was my mission field. And I do believe that to an extent, but I was like throwing myself on the sword, thinking that it was going to do some good, that it was going to win my husband over to the Lord. And when all intents and purposes, it was actually driving him away, me staying, the enabling, me taking the abuse. It just was getting worse and worse by the day, especially his relationship with God, which looking back, I don't think he actually had.
No.
This is a man that was cussing God out and flicking him off, while I'm on a heap in the floor crying, like my eyes out. It just was awful. So yeah, the suffering part, I really thought it was doing some good, and it just really wasn't. It was destroying me.
Yeah.
And God didn't want that.
No. And you said a lot there, Jen. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. I'm hopefully that might be helpful to someone that's in a similar situation and here's that. Certainly, all the way that you saw it was all that matters at the time. But I would agree that for you to enjoy your life now, you had to go through those things in order to get to this point. And as I've pointed out to you several times, you've learned a lot through everything that you went through, and it made you the person that you are. And I say the same thing about me. All the bad times, even my short-lived first marriage, I learned a lot from it. I learned by being this person that I describe, who just seemed to lay there and just allow things to happen to her. You are not that at all. And I have a real appreciation because I have something to compare it to. Um, and I'm not like purposefully trying to compare the two of you, but it just naturally happens. You
Yeah.
know, it's the experience more than the people that I'm
Yeah.
comparing. It's the experience that I have on my end from two very different situations. So thank you for sharing, Jen. I appreciate
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So everyone answered that one. The next one, I wonder, does the stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma ease up when thoughts translate to actions, or does it all become exacerbated? I'll go first on this one. I think that action, like I'll use the same scenario that I just went through. If my ex had gotten tired of the stress, anxiety, and trauma, and as she said she was, but there were no actions to follow it up. I believe that if she had really pursued counseling or read books or was really involved in church or went and talked to a pastor, there were any number of things. Even doing one of them would have been an action that she chose to do something about her situation. Now, I know it's different in every case, but I believe that your actions do help alleviate the pressure, trauma, and stress that you're feeling. Um, some people that suffer from these things that are going to a therapist won't like, for instance, if they refuse to leave their home, a good therapist won't say, "Well, all you got to do is just make yourself go outside and you're done." No, they'll have the person do it in steps, like just stand by the door and look through the window for an hour. You're not even trying to go outside. That's an action. It seems ridiculous to us who don't have that problem. But it's getting someone used to it. If you're afraid of flying, they don't tell you just go get on a plane. They'll say, okay, it's a step for you to go to the airport. Just go to the airport. You don't buy a ticket or anything. You just walk through the door. You watch all the planes take off and land, and that's all you do for a while. And then once you've done that, then you'll go and buy a ticket. You don't actually get it'd be really ridiculously expensive, but just go with me. So you buy a ticket and you go to the gate and you watch people board the plane and you watch it take off and then you go home. My point is that you do it in increments, but each thing that you do towards changing or whatever is plaguing you, whatever is causing the anxiety and stress and the trauma, the actions that you do will change it little by little. In some cases, there are other cases where it's just something you do. You tear the band-aid off and you do it, and you find out that it alleviates the stress. I think in any case, action is a huge way to change it. For you, Jen, using your story for example, even after you left, I mean, I know you're still dealing with the effects of being in that situation for so long, but the actions that you took, the first step for you was realizing what it was. That was a step, that was an action.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to someone about it, letting someone know what you were going through, that was an action. Leaving, standing up to your abuser by leaving was an action. And you continue to take actions every day. And little by little, step by step, from what I have observed, your anxiety lessens, your stress and your trauma and the things that you dealt with in that situation, they get easier and easier and easier to deal with. And then sometimes the longer you're in a situation, the more time it can take for you to get out of it. But
Yeah.
each step you take, willingly moving forward, inch by inch, if that's the case, it makes a difference over time.
Sure
What
does.
do you think, Jen?
What's the question again?
I wonder, does the stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma ease up when thoughts translate to actions, or does it all become exacerbated?
I think it eases up. It may be a little bit hard at first, but my dad used to say this all the time: action cures fear. And I think fear is highly connected to anxiety, if not all the way.
Sure, sure.
So, yeah, I think action there's been times in my life that I have sat in the midst of my circumstances, and you just feel overtaken, and molehills become mountains just
Mhm.
by thinking of it. It's so interesting what our minds can do. We stew on things, we ruminate, and things in our minds get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where we can't tackle it. We can't even open our eyes to look at it to try to formulate a plan to take care of it.
Right.
And so action doesn't necessarily always have to mean something's nipped in the bud with that one
Right.
action. Sometimes it's a multitude of actions, just one thing each day or one thing each week, toward something different. But yeah, I definitely think action is a big, big part of it. I think it's a lie straight from the enemy to think that we're completely hopeless and helpless. We have free will. We all have choices in different situations, and to think that we don't, I think, is a huge disservice to ourselves, because it does make us powerless. It does make us helpless
Yeah.
and hopeless. And I've been there before. It's a really tough place to be,
Yeah.
but it's a lie. It's an absolute lie from the pit of hell. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because
agree.
the enemy wants to see you stuck. He wants you to see you stuck, thinking that you have no options.
Sure.
Did I totally get off topic there? Did that answer the question okay?
Yeah. I mean, you
Okay.
answered it right at the beginning, and then you added things to it
Yeah.
to bring
Sorry about it.
context.
I
But
went on a rant.
no, that's fine. No, that's what the show is. It's basically a conversational rant from the three of
Yeah.
us, I think. But your basic answer to the question was yes. When you take the actions, it does translate into easing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. Glenn, uh, does the stress, anxiety, pressure, and trauma ease up when thoughts translate to actions, or does it all become exacerbated?
Exacerbated, but I'll put it in context, meaning it makes it feel a lot worse. Okay, let's just look at revenge. The thoughts of revenge for me was stressful. All of those things, all of those words, I felt like crap. When I took the action to initiate revenge, I felt way worse, because not only did I have those things, then I had to add guilt to it, because that's not my normal, it's not the way I like to behave.
Yeah.
But I was just overwhelmed by the get even mentality. So, no, I felt way, way worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the way I answered the question, I misunderstood the way that you were presenting the question.
No, it's just that we're coming from different angles, which is good.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. It sounds like the way that you answered the question was based on like acting out of revenge. Would that exacerbate the situation?
Oh, okay. I think I misunderstood the question.
Well,
Was
no,
it action?
Yeah, I'm saying I did, because I was thinking that he was saying when a person has anxiety, pressure, and trauma, does action translate into it easing up? But when he answered the question, he answered from the perspective of, like, instead of taking revenge or acting out of revenge, does that exacerbate the problem of the anxiety, pressure, and trauma? And in his scenario, he was saying, well, yeah, it would make it worse. And I would agree with him if that's the way I'm
Yeah.
asking. If I know that's the way the question's being asked, is a reference
Yeah.
to revenge, you taking action to exact revenge, for instance. Does that lessen the anxiety? No, absolutely not. It would make it worse. So you're digging deeper into whatever the situation is by taking action in that way. I thought it
Yeah.
was avoiding, or by taking action, you're doing something about the anxiety, stress, and pressure, not
Yeah.
in terms of revenge, but you're doing something to deal with it. So
Yeah.
I feel ridiculous now. But,
Yeah, because if action is revenge seeking, yeah,
right.
maybe it could be a temporary relief, and then I don't know. I guess there's some people that could take revenge and they're just happy that they did it, and they're going to be happy no matter if they get caught or reap any repercussions or anything. They're just like, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, well, Glenn kind of addresses that, so we'll definitely
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit. That feels good for a second, but I believe there's long-term consequences of that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. In case you have not noticed, it's not that difficult to take someone down, to cause hurt and pain via retribution or just for the sake of it, etc. I understand that it can momentarily make one feel better. There it is, Jen. To do so, I think most of us have been there. Yeah, I've already shared one story of that. It did feel better. I hate to say it, but I definitely what I did, I acted out of my flesh, and certainly was not my spirit or my intellect. It was stupid in every way. I don't say that it was a good decision, but I did feel better momentarily after.
Yeah.
I felt vindicated in my retribution. That'll get him. That'll really make him upset, because he made me upset. So it made sense to me at the time. He didn't think about me. Wasn't thinking about my needs when he did the thing he did to me. So I wasn't considering him. So yeah, felt good for a moment, and then it didn't last very long at all. And replication started. Okay. So after what I just read, perhaps good in a moment until you begin to consider what you just did. So what do you think about that? Does it feel good for a second when we take revenge?
Guess
What
it
do you
depends on
think?
the person.
Yeah.
I think some people could, if they followed through with it, they might regret it as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
But I think there's people that it does feel good for a second. And I do think there's people that probably, like I mentioned before, that they're glad they did it. And even if they get caught or get in trouble, they're still glad that they did it. And I think it chips away at our souls, in a bad way, whether someone recognizes that or not. It's almost like dehumanizes yourself in a way, when it comes to the side of us that shows empathy and forgiveness and
Yeah.
grace and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does depend on the person. In my opinion, I think that it's for some people. I mean, you see these movies where someone goes to a lot of trouble to get revenge, and sometimes you're rooting for them. How many times are they going to tell the same story of a husband whose wife is raped and kids are killed in front of them, and they learn how to fight, or they go to the shooting range, they learn how to shoot a gun, and then they go on this revenge killing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're rooting for them because it's the same story they present over and over and over again. So I guess it's important to someone in Hollywood that we live out this revenge fantasy.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways it represents, when the movie about road rage that you and I watched, Jen, you went back and forth between rooting for the villain and rooting for the quote unquote protagonist, because she was in the wrong too. There was like two
Yeah.
people that were equally in the wrong. Of course, one of them was a killer and the other one wasn't. But I think that the reason why there are movies like that is because we've all been in road rage situations. We've all been in a place of thinking about enacting revenge, and we have that choice every day, whether to act on our base feelings, whether to take revenge in our own hands. And in a road rage situation, someone cuts you off. So how stupid is it? I mean, I'm saying this about myself. How stupid is it? You speed around them, you get in front of them, and then slam on your brakes because that's what they did to you. It's just stupid.
I've so done that.
Yeah, a lot
Long
of people
time ago,
have.
though.
It's
Nothing
just, some people,
recently.
yeah, a long time ago, right? The thing is, there's a lot of people that wouldn't be willing to admit that. But
Yeah.
the place I'm at in my life is I want to be a better person. And so how I get there sometimes is by admitting times when I wasn't a better person, and admitting that I have that part of me. I think we all do. It's honestly, to me, it's what you do with it. What you do with realizing that you have parts of you that aren't as good as other parts.
Yeah.
So perhaps, in answer to the question, perhaps good in a moment until you begin to consider what you just did. Certainly the situation that I already shared that it did feel good in the moment. In road rage situations, yeah, there's a sense of satisfaction if someone cuts you off and you pull by them and you cut them off. It feels good for a second. But there have been other times when I'm speeding around someone and I look up just in time to see that the traffic has stopped and I slam my brakes on. I wasn't even paying attention and I was able to avoid an accident, but the feel good never comes because I just realized that I wasn't paying attention and I almost ran into the back of someone else that had nothing to do with the altercation.
Yep.
How thrilled and happy would I be in the moment of exacting my revenge if I've wrecked my car and ran into someone that wasn't even involved because of my actions? Not good. I'll answer the question myself.
Yeah.
Not good. What about you, Glenn? Perhaps good in the moment until you begin to consider what you just did in reference
Yeah,
to.
it used to be, but I've given all that rubbish up nowadays. I just think there's so many more important things that I should be focused on rather than this garbage.
Yeah.
Yep. It is garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Glenn. We'll say hello to my friend John Dons, my buddy from California. Glad to see you. We're glad that you're here. And he says, I'm saving all my revenge for my 100th birthday. Then he continues, going to need a big budget and some cooperation from my great-grandchildren. Well, I don't know if you want this known, but you already have great-grandchildren. I don't know why I'm laughing about that. I have no children, and for those of you that are thinking that you know of, no, I know I don't have children. So I think it's great that someone the same age as me has great-grandchildren. He had children pretty young, and then they've already had children. So yeah. John also says I need bifocals. I don't need bifocals yet. I just need reading glasses. I can't see without them. But you'll be happy to know, John, that I'm at the top end. I can't go any further with the drugstore reading glasses. So whenever I can't see anymore from these, then I have to go to an eye doctor and get some proper bifocals. Just not there yet. All right. Add to that can also be deliberate dishonesty, deceit, treachery, etc., for one's personal advantage at the expense of another. In the big picture, I see deferred karma. That's the chameleon in plain sight, metaphorically speaking. The karma chameleon sees you, but you cannot see it. Karma decides when and in what form it will reveal itself. So, with that in mind, if karma is real, is this a good enough reason not to behave badly? What do you think, Jen? If karma is real, is that a good enough reason not to behave badly?
I think in a way, yeah.
Okay.
I know when I was younger, it wasn't karma necessarily that I believed in. I didn't use that word, but I just felt like what goes around comes around. I guess it was more of the popular phrase.
Yeah.
But I also, I just didn't really, I didn't ever really jump on the bandwagon of being mean or vengeful, or I probably was too much of a weenie to try it. Because I had some horrible things done to me as a kid. Oh my gosh, a teen. I was more wrapped up in feeling horrible about myself that someone would do horrible things to me, and how it reflected on my own self-worth, which was very lacking, than to even sit down and plan revenge. I was more of like, why don't people like me? It wasn't like, you don't like me, I'm gonna make you pay. Your chair's laughing at me. So yeah. What about you?
I know you're not not the type of person to do that. No, I didn't get revenge. No, I didn't think I'm going to get revenge on people that don't like me. Yeah, I didn't understand if someone didn't like me. I have always been very much a people person. So if someone didn't like me, sometimes I would pick up on that and I would try even harder.
Same here. Oh.
I think it's natural. I think if we intuit that someone doesn't like us, then we'll try a little bit harder with that person. And the interesting thing is sometimes it worked, other times it didn't always work. But I can think of a couple of examples of some girls in particular that I was not interested in, but I noticed that they weren't laughing at my personality and stuff when other people were, or I was fairly popular, but these people just seemed to turn their nose up. That always interested me. I was like, what about me is it that they don't like? So I would try a little harder, and sometimes it developed a friendship with that person. Never went any further than that, and I didn't want it to, but sometimes when people got a better sense of who I was, then they changed. But there were people, I remember in high school when I went to Michigan, there were I was fairly popular, and that's certainly not bragging or anything, but I had a different friends in different groups. It was like the Breakfast Club, just like it is in any public school. You had the jocks and the Marlboro Country, basically that just means the smokers, cigarette smokers, and jocks and brains and well, nerds, or whatever word you want to use for it. And I had friends in each group. I've told the story before, but I worked in the attendance office. I had classes in the morning, and then I had free period, and they offered that as an elective for me to work out of the attendance office. So it was my job to pick up the attendance slips from all the classes in the high school and bring them back to the office. And then at the couple hours later, they would go collect them again for anyone that didn't end up showing up. And so I would drop in the classes, and sometimes I would do little funny things. Like there was this one that the cork board was right around the corner from the door, and I would just stick my hand in and make it a point to grope around for the slip that I knew would be hanging there somewhere without dipping my head in. And some people would laugh at that, but there were these.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
I could see your hand like flailing around.
Right.
Not
That's
quite
exactly
getting
it. Yeah, not quite getting it. Yeah. So, but there are these two people that never laughed. They never laughed. And about half the school year went by, and I finally walked up to them. They were sitting in a classroom and waiting for class to start. And I went in to pick up the attendance, and they were just sitting there. And I walked up to them and I said, "Hey, I heard that you guys don't like me. Well, what's the deal?" And they both just looked at me and then looked away, and they didn't ever answer my question. So I never found out what it is. I just had heard from other people that they didn't like me for whatever reason.
I don't think they liked your directness.
Maybe, but I remember these two people weren't very popular themselves, but I don't know why. But it doesn't seem to matter whether the people that don't like you are popular or not. It just matters that someone doesn't like you.
Yeah.
I would react much differently today. If I knew that someone didn't like me, I wouldn't bother with it at all. It wouldn't mean anything to me.
We grow, we learn.
We grow, we learn. If karma is real, is this a good enough reason not to behave badly, for the fear of what is around the corner? Is it good enough reason? No, probably not. I mean, it is a reason. If you look at it from the aspect of you reap what you sow, is that a good enough reason? I think fear of God, reverence, not fear like God is an angry God, he's going to kill me, but reverence of God is a good enough reason for me. A respect of that. If God says, don't take revenge and things like that, that's reason enough for me. But not everyone feels like that. If you don't believe in God, then there would be no reason to have reverence for God. So the reasons for that person would be different. So for me, it's not just karma itself. I think what Glenn goes on to say here, which I'll read in a minute, but there are plenty of other reasons to treat people with dignity and respect and not take revenge and things like that. So, Glenn, you kind of answered the question in the part of the write-up, but I'll give you an opportunity if you want to take it to answer the question.
Sure.
if karma is real, is this a good enough reason to not behave badly?
Yeah, well, even though I think karma's real, I've never ever thought of it in terms of karma. I've always thought of it in terms of do unto others as you would have the etc.
Right.
Do unto you, whatever. And so that's why I always felt so guilty if I acted out of revenge, because I wouldn't like people to behave like that to me. So it's sort of out of my comfort zone to do that. So
Right.
yeah, it's not, I don't think it's about karma. I think it's like I said in the write up, because it's the right thing to do. And I think
Right.
it's based on that principle that I just said.
Right. Right. So Glenn continues, I don't think so. I rather think behave better because it's the right thing to do. Does it feel better to do good than harm? I say very much so. I would agree. It feels way better to do good for people than to harm them. I really, and I explain this to Jen all the time. She often asks me, "Why are you so good to me? You know, why are you such a good husband?" Blah blah blah. And I just smiled. She's really easy to be good to. It's not that I'm this great person. I mean, I am maturing and I'm better than I used to be. But again, I learned from my first marriage, and in that marriage, I was good to her as well. But so the difference isn't me, although I have changed and matured. The difference is the person I'm with. She's really easy to be kind and loving to. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is like that. You should be kind and loving to people, even if they're difficult to love. But she just really makes it easy. So there's that. Did everyone answer that question? I think we did.
Wait,
Oh,
what was the question?
well, you didn't answer this part. Does it feel better to do good than harm, Jen? You want to answer that one?
I definitely think it feels better to do good,
Yeah.
especially when you're harmed.
Yeah. I think it takes more when you're harmed. It takes more, fortitude
Yeah.
and, I can't think of the word, but, takes more effort. That's good
Yeah.
enough effort to do that. Glenn says in the write up that he thinks very much so, but offer you an opportunity. Do you want to make a comment? Does it feel better to do good than harm, Glenn?
You bet.
Uh,
There's no, to my mind, there's no good feeling really. Certainly not these days. Well, it's just. Why would I do it? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no advantage to me to deliberately harm someone.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Great. The next thing is, and this is a quote, but I want to ask a question based on this. It's not framed as a question, but I think it's a great quote. Glenn quotes Melanie Chisholm, and she says, "Everybody in life is a chameleon." I know what Jen's going to say about this, so I'll comment first. I would agree. I think that unfortunately, a lot of people. I'm looking at it from the aspect of a chameleon being someone that changes due to their environment. Certainly, a real chameleon will do that, and it's a way to hide from predators. If the things around them are green, they'll go green so that they are not easily seen. But in life, you could say it's similar to that, and that a person will adjust to their surroundings so they kind of blend in. It's a similar reason, I suppose. Maybe they're not going to get eaten in real life like a chameleon might, but they're avoiding something. They're changing in their environment to avoid something, whether it's embarrassment or whether they feel like they're not going to be liked. But I think that we all go through that. I mean, I'm sure it's arguable. People would say, oh, I've been the same way my whole life and I've never changed for the benefit of someone else or to fit into a situation. And I hear that. What do you think, Jen? Everybody in life is a chameleon. You want to comment on that?
I think that's true. I think even people that have had more confidence than others growing up that found who they were and kind of stuck with it. I think we all have instances where we change a little bit regarding like our surroundings and who we're around. Hopefully it's not much,
Yeah.
Like, I think I used to be an oversharer, and I've learned to hold my cards closer to my chest with certain people if I see red flags or,
Sure.
whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, as you knew I was going to go here, when I was younger, I was a chameleon, and I was kind of like you, Jason, where I was friends with a lot of different people from different groups. And I think because I didn't really have a self identity, I sort of blended with the people I was around to be accepted,
Sure.
instead of using that time more wisely to figure out who I was,
Yeah.
So.
When you say that, I mean, I believe you, but it's just hard for me to imagine when you tell me some of these stories. It's hard for me to imagine it because, I only know this version of you. And I know that even when we met, when you described the situation that you were coming out of, I just have always seen you as the person that you are now. I mean, even
Yeah.
from the beginning. So it's just interesting. It's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
What do you think, Glenn? Everybody in life is a chameleon. And just do you want to make a comment about Mel?
Yeah, well, I think it's 100% true, but I just think we put on different camouflage patterns when we're different people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to some extent, like I'm going to act differently when I'm working. When I'm like for one of my current jobs is TurboTax and helping customers with their taxes. So I'm going to act a certain way. I may not joke in the same way. I mean, I do have a personality still, even when I'm doing that job. And if I see an opportunity to make someone laugh, I will. But I'm going to be acting differently in a work situation than I am like hanging around with Jen. Obviously, it's a completely different scenario altogether. So am I a chameleon for doing that? I don't know. I'm adjusting to the environment that I'm in while I'm at work. It's the same. You work in an office and you make some adjustments. You wouldn't act necessarily the same way around your workmates as you would around friends and things like that. So I think it's somewhat a natural progression. It's just natural to act a little bit different in certain scenarios. But all right. The next quote, I also like what Hugh Jackman says. Maturity is when you have the power to destroy someone who did you wrong, but you just breathe, walk away, and let life take care of them. I love this quote. And I also like Hugh Jackman quite a bit as an actor. I don't know him personally, but
Well, I can tell you about Hugh Jackman. My mum and dad, one of their good friends is good friends with the Jackmans, and they all say that Hugh Jackman is a wonderful guy. They can't speak highly enough of him. So there you go.
That's really cool.
I'll take your word for it. I
Yeah.
can just trust that he is a wonderful guy. What are you laughing about, Jeff?
My mom has this group of friends, really close girlfriends, that they go to the beach twice a year, and they were all talking, and one of the ladies was like, "Did you guys see that new movie with Jack Human?" And they're all like, "Who?" And she was like, "Jack Human. You guys don't know him." And they finally realized that she was saying Hugh Jackman. And she just got it backwards. So every time I hear about Hugh Jackman, I think of that. It makes me laugh.
That's worth
Jack
it.
Human.
Jack Human. That's great. Yeah, I agree with Hugh Jackman or Jack Human's statement. Maturity is when you have the power to destroy someone who did you wrong, but you just breathe, walk away, and let life take care of them. I'll go a step further and say that shows a lot of power to know that you could destroy someone and not do it. And from the Spider-Man movie to him with much power is much responsibility. And that would be the original Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. His uncle says that. And I agree with it. With power comes responsibility, and the power that comes with the responsibility that comes with the power might be that you make a choice when you know that you could destroy someone, and you, just like Hugh Jackman says, you decide not to. I mean, that shows tremendous maturity and restraint to have the ability and the power to do that, and you decide not to. I think that's huge. So there that is. Okay. I don't believe karma is about punishment or reward. I rather see it as a mechanism that confronts us with the consequences of our actions. That's my idea. I would like to hear your opinions. So Glenn is saying, I see it as a mechanism that confronts us with the consequence of our actions. I would agree with that completely. So when we make certain choices, good and bad, there are consequences or rewards for that action, but it may not be about the punishment of the reward. It's, as Glenn says, consequences of our actions. Well, of course, I'm not going to be able to think of it when I'm trying to call it out, but for every action, there's a reaction. I said I wouldn't be able to think of it, but I did. For every action, there's a reaction. I mean, you hear that all the time. So if someone acts, there's going to be a reaction. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond. There's going to be ripples. It could be a very smooth, calm body of water. But even if there are waves, there's still a reaction, even if we don't see it. So, yeah. There are consequences for our actions, and to be aware of that, I think someone would be wise to do that. What about you, Jen? Glenn wants to hear our opinions about that. I don't believe karma is about punishment or reward, or rather see it as a mechanism that confronts us with our consequences of our actions. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think some people might look at it as a reward. Not doing anything evil, no revenge on people. And I guess we do get, I mean, I'm thinking we get heavenly rewards for not acting or focusing on revenge, but forgiving people. But that's not why we do it, or hopefully.
Right. Right. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Okay. This brings us to the internal friends. Wait a minute. Well, I didn't ask Glenn. Glenn, well, you answered the question. I would like to. Yeah, so you answered. All right. This brings us to the internal friends, and Cripps gets the chance to lead this part of the discussion. So the question is, what are the attitudes and thoughts that enable us to live a life of contentment rather than a focus on righting perceived wrongs done to us? What are the attitudes and thoughts that enable us to live a life of contentment rather than a focus on righting perceived wrongs done to us? Since he mentioned me, I'll answer first on that one, and then Jen can go. The attitudes and thoughts that enable us to live a life of contentment. That's a really, really great question. And I would say that based on my own experiences, as I said earlier, I do learn from them. But unfortunately, sometimes I have to do things to learn from them first, rather than just intuitively knowing, hey, don't touch the hot stove. I mean, if my parents, when I was a kid, said, hey, don't touch that stove, it's hot, sometimes I touched it anyway. Because I guarantee you, if you put a button in a room with a sign that says do not push, there's going to be, and they've tested this. They've actually tested this. There was I forget what college it was, but they were testing it. So they put a random button in the hallway or something with a sign that says do not push. And then they connected a counter to it to see how often someone walking by pressed the button. It's the same concept of the fire alarms in a hallway. You put fire alarm and all that, and everyone knows not to pull it, but it gets pulled from time to time. Then the firefighters have to come out and reset it. And I don't know why it's so stupid that they don't give a key to the people in the building. They've got to call the firefighters out and reset it. That happened here. We had some kids that were really, really bad kids, and they key scratched our car, and they would knock on people's doors and run off. I mean, some of it's harmless, but one of them one day pulled the fire alarm, and the fire alarm is extremely loud, and it goes off in all the apartments as well. So it's not just an external fire alarm. It causes everyone's apartment in the unit. The internal fire alarms in the apartment go off. I don't think you were home, Jen. I think weren't you at Flyers?
No, I think I got home and it was still on.
Yeah, you got home and it was still on. Yeah, but that had been going on for like 2 hours. I'm trying to work and this alarm's going off in the apartment, and outside a larger alarm going off. And I called office and it was busy. I mean, obviously other people were calling too. And then I waited and I saw the fire trucks pull up and they came in and they shut it off. It was ridiculous. But something that seems simple to a kid, oh, this will be funny if I pull this alarm, it causes enormous consequences.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever caught those kids. I mean, when they key scratched a car or reported them, and then they were like, well, we don't have any cameras on the building, so we have no idea who did it. And I didn't see who did it. I mean, there were some certain kids that were hanging around that seemed like they're up to no good, but I didn't see anybody do it. So what do you do? But the point is, well, I was answering the question, what are the attitudes and thoughts? I was making the point that I've learned from past experience, and in that I've learned to not focus on the perceived wrongs, again, because I have made that mistake before, both in the story that I told and, road rage incidents, getting mad at someone and trying to get them back. It doesn't lead anywhere good. I would much rather, if someone's driving like a maniac, I say a little prayer for them. God protect them. They're driving crazy, and I don't want to, have them speed up ahead of me on the road and see that they're in a ditch, because that happens sometimes. I've seen the videos, the instant karma videos, where not only is someone driving recklessly, but they considered instant karma. If that person ends up in a ditch, they could be very injured.
Or kill somebody.
Or kill someone, or kill themselves for that matter. Yeah. So the attitudes that enable a life of contentment are to let things go as much as possible. Forgive, be easy to forgive, be merciful, especially for believers that know that God is merciful, as Believe had mentioned. God is merciful, and he gives us opportunities and time to accept the gifts that he gives. And we need to offer that same thing to other people, in my opinion. So to focus on perceived wrongs, it's not only bad for others, it's bad for us. It's focusing our time and attention on something that we shouldn't focus on. It takes away, it definitely adds the idea of trauma and anxiety and stress when you don't have to live like that. I would say that's my answer. What do you think, Jen?
I would agree with your answer, but I also was going to say there's peace when your conscience isn't marred. I could imagine, like from my own experience, I'm just not a vengeful person. And so knowing that I haven't done anything to exact revenge on somebody in my past, whether I had repercussions or not, at all, I just feel like there's peace there,
Yeah.
At least for someone that has like a moral compass.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like I would probably just be riddled with guilt,
Right.
Not good. So there's peace there, which I find very nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
What do you think, Glenn? What are the attitudes and thoughts that enable us to live a life of contentment rather than one of focus on righting perceived wrongs done to us?
I think embrace people who have integrity and offer them an opportunity to be part of your life. I also think embrace people who don't have integrity but walk away from them, because they'll cause much discontent in your life and you don't need it.
Yeah, that's biblical too.
Is it? Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't cheat, honestly.
Yeah, right.
Bad company corrupts good character is one. Bad company corrupts good character is a verse for sure. So that one's more, don't hang around people because it's going to affect you for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. Glenn says, I'll start with doing to others as you would have done to yourself. I mean, that's a big one. The golden rule, doing to others as you would have them do unto you. The way Glenn phrased it is perfectly good. Doing to others as you would have done to yourself. That's one you learn in children's church. And I understand why they say that. Like if you're sitting next to someone and you're hitting them, they'll pull that one out. Hey, do you want that? Do you want them to hit you? No. Well, don't hit them. I mean, it's a pretty simple one. Even a child can understand. The energy you emit is the energy you attract. Now, Glenn's not. I don't think he's saying this isn't the law of attraction or anything. It's interesting, the law of attraction. We could do a whole show about that. We're not going to do that now. We're gonna be done here in a second. But there are plenty of people that believe that they put the energy out and expect that that's what is going to be returned to them. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but I don't believe that everything that we want is affected by our energy. I don't believe that. I also don't believe name it and claim it, where you just tell the universe or God what you want and it's going to happen for you. I don't think that's true at all, but there are scores of people that seem to. It's a very popular concept, in particular the law of attraction, that you attract certain things based on your attitude. I think there is some truth to that. If you're a negative person, you're attracting negative things. I mean, if you claim that negative things are happening to you and that's all you focus on, then yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then in the same way, if you are positive and you expect positive things to happen and you're talking about positive things, then yeah, that may be your experience. But even if you're talking positive, negative things happen. And if you're talking negative, maybe positive things happen as well. It's not just a matter of the energy that you put out, in my opinion, but it may have something to do with it. Anyone want to comment on that or move on to the last couple things here?
I agree with that, what you said.
Okay. I didn't ask you, what about the do unto others as you would have done to yourself? What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I also agree with your answer on that. I think that's a good rule to live by.
Sure. What about you, Glenn? Do you have a comment on either one of the first two there?
No, I think they're self-explanatory.
Yeah. The last one is, as you think, so you shall be. Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, I mean, definitely our thoughts, the way we view ourselves, our perception is everything to us. If we think that we can't do it, it's usually true. I remember the children's story, the little engine that could, I think I can, I think I can. Now, in reality, depending on the size of the hill, depending on the size of the engine, you're not going to make it up a hill if your engine is too small to do it. It doesn't have anything to do with what you think you can do. But people are different than trains, I mean, I think positive energy goes a long way. The Bible says, as we think in our minds, so are you, or as you the things you meditate on. The Bible makes it clear to focus on things that are good, things that are of good report. Paul makes that clear in Scripture.
And the Beatitudes.
Beatitudes, yeah. Well, the Beatitudes are a little bit different than what I was referring to, but yeah, the Beatitudes are definitely things to follow. Blessed are the meek; they shall inherit the earth, and things like that. Those are all, in my opinion, true. So the last part, what is my destiny? What is yours? How can I know? Can I change it? Maybe. We talked a little bit about destiny. It's a big topic, and I think we all shared about that. I don't know what my destiny is. I can't see into the future. I think that, we make the best choices we can, and the things that just happen to us that are not a byproduct of our decisions, we just do the best we can to deal with it. And that's kind of how we live our life. What it is to other people, I guess they would have to answer that question. I don't think we can know what our destiny is. We can only in hindsight can we think.
That's our exit music.
That's it for tonight. That's the exit music, guys. Thank you for being here.
That's Clive bringing me. I muted it fast. I hope.
So we end with a comment. To journey without being changed is to be a nomad. To change without journeying is to be a chameleon. To journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim. Mark Nepo or Nepo. What a profound comment. Yeah, to journey without being changed. I think I have mentioned several times, I'm a very big proponent of growing and changing every day. And again, biblically speaking, we are to do that. We're to be changed every day by the renewing of our minds. And the thing that does that is the Holy Spirit, but we have to be responsible for accepting that. We don't block it, we don't avoid it, and we do that by allowing the Holy Spirit to do His work. And so I agree with the last quote. Especially the part to journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim. I think in a way we're all pilgrims, whether we like it or not. But are we? Is it by whether we're transformed by the journey that we take? I don't know. I mean, that's certainly what Mark Nepo thinks. Anyone want to comment on the last quote before we end it?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the write-up, Glenn. This has been a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We certainly had a lot of good comments in the chat. Again, I'm trying to host, and I try to post everyone's comment. I'm sure I don't get everyone's, but I love that you guys have these great conversations, and I appreciate everyone who came tonight in the chat. If you're listening to the playback, thank you for stopping by. If you like the sort of topics that we do and the conversations we have, simply tell the other people about it. We would love to have more people join in the conversation here in the chat. I know a lot more people listen to the broadcast than show up in the chat, based on our views and things like that. So just make sure before you go, if you put a like for us, that does tell YouTube that at least some people like it. And that helps in whether we're buried as a channel or whether people are able to find us easily. It has a lot to do with the likes and the views and things like that. Okay, we'll say goodnight, and we'll start with Jen this time. Jen, say goodnight to the people.
All right. Good night, peoples. Thank you so much, as always, for coming out and hanging out with us. And I really like this topic.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for anyone that helps me learn the lyrics to an old great song better. I was like you, Jason. I thought it was "Come come come." I was like, "Karma,
Yeah.
what?"
Yeah, it's funny. I never thought of it, but when he posted it after last week's shows, kind of what the topic would be, or whenever it was that he posted it, I was like, "Oh wow, Karma Chameleon." Yeah.
Yeah, I think you and I both went and looked at the lyrics at the same time on Google. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it is karma." Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Love these guys. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, Joel, I see you there, buddy. He says another great show. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate that. All right, Glenn, say goodbye to the people if you don't mind, sir.
Yeah, good night to those few people that are here. Well, we're not getting paid by numbers, Cripps, but
all right.
Thanks. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks for coming. Good night.
Thank you, Glenn. All right, yeah, we didn't have too many in tonight, and that's fine. I mean, I know everyone has their own lives, but as long as people show up from time to time, I guess we'll just keep doing it. Like I said, I know we have more views than people that actually come for the live show, but the few people that do, we love you guys, and thank you for supporting us like that. Appreciate it very much. Hope everyone has a great week. Yeah. This has been another episode of True Story Live. The topic tonight is Karma a Chameleon? Destiny Falls, and that link is in the description. If you get a chance, go ahead and go and click the link and listen to the song. And thank you for being here tonight. Hope everyone has a good week. We'll be here again next Sunday night at 8 p.m. and it's my turn to do a write-up. I'm not even sure what I'll write about, but I'm sure Jen will help me think of something. So next week you'll have that little difference in the write-up for next week. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it as usual. And until next week, good night and God bless. Thanks for listening.